My boyfriend said the quiet part out loud. Last night my boyfriend, 20, and me, 21 female, were going to have some fun. For context, this is the only non-abusive relationship I've ever had, especially in regards to lovemaking. To put it lightly, my other relationships didn't give a crap about me or my pleasure. Sometimes I get worried my current boyfriend doesn't care about my pleasure, but I've been convincing myself that I'm just paranoid and putting up a wall because of my last relationships. So we're getting in the mood, and I notice once again he is not doing much for me and I'm doing everything for him and his pleasure. For instance, this happens often. I put his hand down there and he moves it away. I tell him I really want to finish tonight and he immediately does an annoyed face with a big sigh. I'm confused. He says, but that's so much work making you finish. I don't know if it's your ADHD or something but. And I immediately stop what I'm doing and my mind goes blank. I do have ADHD, but let me tell you, this man doesn't do anything to pleasure me. He has said he finds vaginas gross, so let me tell you this has nothing to do with my ADHD. Last night he confirmed my worst fears, that for 5 effing years I've been dating him and he doesn't.
What did a teacher say that made you immediately walk out of the classroom? Gym class, swimming. We were told from day one that if we did not dress out and swim on swim day we would fail the class. No excuses even for periods. And we had to swim with the boys. I love swimming, so I had no desire to avoid it. But on swim day, on the way to the pool, the boys all started grabbing us all by the butts and breasts and the coach seemed to egg it on by pushing us into a tiny lobby by the pool. Us girls were all screaming and fighting but the coach laughed and called us prissies. I immediately ran back to the locker room to get dressed. After that, every swim day I refused to dress out. My mother supported my decision. I was threatened every day with failure. I did not care. But then my friend, who was a shy, quiet, good girl said she could not swim because her periods were so heavy she was very sick. The coach forced her to run bleachers until they passed out. I saw it because I also had to run bleachers for refusing to dress out. After that, I started all-out war against the coach and convinced most of the girls to refuse dressing out. I refused to finish the physical fitness test. Every test.
What's your personal butterfly effect story? My aunt was always on time to everywhere. It's trauma left over from her childhood. She lived in the Bronx and worked in Lower Manhattan, so she usually had to get up pretty early to get to work on time. One night, the power in her building went out. No idea why it was the only building in the area affected. Her digital alarm had reset when the power came back on, so her alarm did not wake her up. She woke up with 30 minutes before she should be at work. Panicking, she got ready and ran to the subway. The subway by her apartment was having maintenance issues and she got stuck for 20 minutes 3 stops away. For the first time in her life, she called into work sick, saying she'd be in too late and would work overtime the next day. She walked back to her apartment and fell asleep. She woke up about 4 hours later when one of my other aunts was pounding on her door. My other aunt was hysterical because she hadn't been answering her phone. And that's how a weird electrical mishap caused my aunt's alarm clock to reset, making her late, missing her train, meaning she avoided being in the building next to the World Trade Center on 9/11.
Would I be the whole if I break up with my GF over her weight? I, 28 meters, am 6'5", 200 pounds and go to the gym 3 times a week and go for jogs daily. I met my GF, 24, at the gym about 2 years ago. She's smaller and was thin at the time, she was cute and funny, and we hit it off really well. Almost a year ago we decided to move in together and I noticed then she had gained a couple pounds but didn't think anything of it. Ever since then she has consistently put on more and more weight. Easily 60 plus pounds now. Of course she no longer works out either. I find her eating habits and appearance gross now. The thin girl I was so attracted to has been replaced by an insatiable eater. She eats bags of candy and wants fast food for every meal. The apartment we are renting lease is ending in April. She has been hinting at wanting to get married, but I'm thinking of cutting her and the apartment free at lease end. So my question is, would I be the whole if I dump my girlfriend because she has gained so much weight I'm no longer attracted to her, longer attracted to her, longer attracted to her, longer.
When did you realize your friends were actually fake friends? When I slowly realized I was only around for chores and errands, rise to the airport, pick up furniture, help move. Anything social always resulted in either last-minute cancellations, showing up 45 minutes late and bolting after 10 minutes. I thought they were busy, but no. When I returned to work after being off for 3 months due to an injury and I practically begged them to go grab a beer and do pub trivia but all 3 of them passed because they had plans, well it turns out their plans were to go grab a beer and do pub trivia. Without me. Found out through social media, deleted it shortly afterwards. I've been a lot less sad about things since I've deleted social media and stopped looking at them as friends and just as work acquaintances. It took that for me to realize that the friendships were really one-sided and I'm better off not pursuing anything other than being cordial at work. When I was babysitting her kids things were going great. We would hang out all the time, have movie nights and just talk and chill, but the second she no longer needed a babysitter was the second I got kicked to the curb. No explanation, not even a text back. I dumped my girlfriend after she told me about her sexual past in college. To make a long story short, we were playing a drinking game with some friends and she admitted to having at least 2 threesomes during college and sleeping with around 13 guys. To be honest, I never asked her about her past before, cause I just thought it was whatever. But damn, something about hearing that made me squeamish. I don't think I'll ever recover honestly. I know some people are gonna call me a misogynistic or a shamer, but I honestly couldn't care less. I knew I could never recover or move past what I heard. I broke up with her next day and said I hope you find someone right for you one day. She obviously started crying and she's still texting me, but I'm already mentally checked out. I'm 24, so I know I got a full life ahead of me. What's the corniest thing you've ever done that you now realize was just plain stupid? Me and this girl was always the last two off the school bus. When everyone else got off we would hold hands, and that progressed into feeling each other up. Well, one day she told me her parents would be leaving for the afternoon after she got off the bus and invited me over. I was 15 at the time, so I rode my Honda 3-wheeler 8 miles in the cold so I could finally seal the deal with my school bus crush. Might not sound like a big deal, but 8 miles on a 3-wheeler in the freezing cold was a pretty dumb move. The ride there was full of excitement, the ride home was full of regret. Oh no, why the regret? It took me so long to get there. By the time things got heated her parents was pulling up the driveway. Thank God she had a long driveway. I hopped back on my 3-wheeled love machine I had parked in the woods and started the long journey home. Our bus lust continued until she got a boyfriend and I never got a second chance.
How did you lose your virginity? I was around 14 and was at a family reunion with a bunch of my relatives. Me and a few of my cousins are hanging out in the jacuzzi and my sister is there as well. We just are talking about life when my dad says that the burgers are ready. All my cousins and sisters get out for some food while I just stay in the jacuzzi for a while. One of my neighbors let his dog off the leash, so it immediately came over to me and I just tried to get it away from me, and I eventually had to go back inside to avoid it. The adults of the family reunion said that they were going out to the club and hired some musical guests to entertain us. One of the people they hired was smoking hot, but she was 25 because I looked at her Wikipedia. I tell the others that I'm going to sneak out and go to the pet supplies store to get some accessories. While I'm there, I see this huge peacock that has these bright feathers, and I'm so mesmerized that I fall asleep. When I wake up, I'm getting head from a Target employee. And that's what happened. No kizzy. No.
My neighbor bangs on the floor. I have an upstairs neighbor who always bangs on the floor when she thinks I'm being too loud. She also leaves notes on my fence, shaming me to the street. However, despite her strict rules of conduct, she herself stomps around her apartment and plays loud music at 6:30 a.m. while she showers. It's quite entertaining, I must say. I live, laugh, and love here under her reign every day. The other day we had our first day of spring. It was a beautiful and warm day with a gentle breeze that entered the house. I noticed that my naughty neighbor had her balcony doors open too. So I immediately decided to do a little DIY project. I grabbed some spray paint, closed my doors with my dog inside, and started repainting the legs of my outdoor chairs. Every time my neighbor closed her doors, I took a break. And as soon as she reopened them, I went back outside to apply another coat of paint, letting the fumes drift into her house with the lovely spring breeze. I could hear her slamming the door a little harder each time, and it was like sweet music to my ears. I made sure the entire painting process took the whole day, so she couldn't fully enjoy the sunshine. It was such a satisfying success that I might consider taking up furniture revamping as a new hobby.
What's the worst cheating story you have ever heard? When I was 13 years old, my best friend was 17 years old, which is already pretty weird. We had a very weird dynamic and hung out outside of school a lot, and he would take me to the houses of a lot of girls he knew, which I didn't. I had not yet gone through puberty, and he would take this as an opportunity to joke about in front of these girls, who were often 14 or 13 themselves, and make them laugh this way. He would get a laugh out of me often and refer to me as cooter repellent, which hurt to hear as the 3 or 4 girls my age around him would laugh. I remember him bragging about how he had gotten brain off one of these girls who was just 13, and he went around saying it like it was the greatest thing in the world. Even I thought this was weird and called him out on it. But he said I was just jealous, and that was that. Anyway, while over at one of the houses I managed to spot a pretty girl and we actually made eye contact. I talked with her a little bit, and afterwards I had noticed that she maybe actually liked me. She was my age, and her best friend, who was 13, had just gotten into a relationship with my friend. I asked her to be my girlfriend after speaking with her just once in real life and once over text. My friend teased me about this non-stop, saying how he could have her if he wanted, but he would be nice and allow me to have a girl to myself for once in my life. I paid no attention to Theos, however, as I envisioned me and this girl going off and spending our lives together, despite the fact we did not even know each other's second.
What is the funniest real-life story you can tell? One day in college, the teacher had stapled answer sheets to the back of every test by mistake. A few minutes after passing the test around, his phone rang and he stepped out. Everyone had noticed the answer sheet, and we decided that we could all use it and tear it off after. So I checked each of the answers, and they were all correct except for the last one. We were to draw a flowchart for the process. I checked the answer sheet, and it said answers will vary. I drew my flowchart, tore the answer sheet off, and walked to the front of the podium to turn in the test. test. When I got to the podium, I had to know. I needed to see what everyone else had drawn for the flowchart. Everyone had written on their tests, answers will vary.
Kids who just graduated high school, did anything crazy happen at your graduation? Yeah. I hit my pen when they called my name and my principal slapped me. I'm a senior in high school, and I've always been a bit of a troublemaker. Throughout my high school years, I've been caught smoking behind the school, skipping classes, and pulling pranks on teachers. My parents and others have had their fair share of complaints about my behavior. The day of my high school graduation finally arrives. The ceremony is held at the school's football stadium, with proud parents and family members in attendance. The air is filled with anticipation and excitement as we prepare to receive our diplomas and close the chapter on our high school lives. As I'm waiting for my name to be called to walk across the stage, I get this wild idea. I decide that, as a final act of rebellion, I'm going to hit my dab pen in front of everyone when they call my name. My friends, knowing my plan, have their phones out, ready to record the whole thing. They're egging me on, and I can't help but feel like the man. They call my name, and everyone cheers and claps as I walk toward the front of the stage. I whip out my dab pen, take a massive hit, and start screaming, "Yodi gang, you feel me? Faded than a hoe. Faded than a hoe. Paying hum."
Would I be the hole if I break up with my GF over her weight? I, 28 meters, I'm 6'5", 200 pounds and go to the gym 3 times a week and go for jogs daily. I met my GF, 24, at the gym about 2 years ago. She's smaller and was thin at the time, she was cute and funny, and we hit it off really well. Almost a year ago we decided to move in together, and I noticed then she had gained a couple pounds, but didn't think anything of it. Ever since then she has consistently put on more and more weight. Easily 60 plus pounds now. Of course she no longer works out either. I find her eating habits and appearance gross now. The thin girl I was so attracted to has been replaced by an insatiable eater. She eats bags of candy and wants fast food for every meal. The apartment we are renting lease is ending in April. She has been hinting at wanting to get married, but I'm thinking of cutting her and the apartment free at lease end. So my question is, would I be the hole if I dump my girlfriend because she has gained so much weight I'm no longer attracted to her?
AITA for ruining both my parents' marriages for disowning me? I am the byproduct of my parents' extramarital affair. Both of them had spouses at the time. My birth mother got pregnant and had to tell her husband as he was overseas when I was conceived, so there was no way I was his. A few months after I was born they decided not to divorce. I was given to my grandparents on my mother's side to raise with my birth father secretly paying child support without his wife's knowledge. Both my parents had other children. My dad's side knows nothing about me, but my siblings on my mom's side were told that I am adopted by my grandparents. Recently I decided that I wanted to know more about my dad's family, and I sent a friend's request to one of my siblings and my dad so I could get to know him. Well, he freaked out and contacted my birth mom and they asked to speak to me over Skype. They both told me that they couldn't risk staying in contact with me and told me that they were going no contact and to please respect it and move on with my life. Well, I did pretty much the opposite. I contacted my dad's wife and shared screenshots of our conversations and told her everything. She is now divorcing him, while on my mother's side I told both my siblings, who then went on to tell extended family including her husband's side, so now they are separate and my siblings hate my mother. Currently my siblings on both sides' lives have been upturned, and after the satisfaction has worn off I feel like I unnecessarily hurt them through my parents. AITA for ruining my parents' marriages?
My ex cheated on me because she thought I was going to break up with her. So for a little backstory, I 33M had been dating Sarah 32F for 6 years and loved every second of it. We were literally soulmates, and so obviously I was going to ask her to marry me. I decided that I would take her to a really expensive restaurant, and when we got back I would have a beautiful display with loads of flowers and a sign asking her to marry me. So when the day came I was all dressed up in a 400-pound suit, and when I told Sarah we needed to go she came downstairs in a t-shirt, jumper and jeans. This upset me quite a bit. Once we were in the car and halfway to the restaurant Sarah told me she felt ill, asked if I would pull over at the pharmacy and get her some paracetamol. Thinking nothing of it I obliged. However, when I came out of the store my car was missing and there was an envelope addressed to me where the car was parked. Inside the envelope were pictures of her naked with another man and a note that said she knew I was going to break up with her, so she decided to cheat on me and leave me before I could do it to her. Obviously, when she arrived home and saw the display I had set up in our room she realized she had made a massive mistake. About 10 minutes after being abandoned I got a call from her. She started the call by claiming it was a big joke, but when I mentioned the pictures she became really apologetic and then followed up by telling me she can't wait to get married. I hung up and called my friend and asked if I could stay the night, which is where I'm writing this from. I've got no clue what I should do. Should I take her back? Should I take her back?
What is the worst NSFW thing you did in your teens? Masturbated while riding a bike down a country lane full daylight. Had to be careful of the occasional car. Was about to have sex for the first time. Girl's mom walked in just before, while we were completely naked. Scared me really fucking bad. Few months later trying again to have my first time, but am now super paranoid. She was blowing me in her basement and the water heater turned on. Scared me so bad I went soft in her mouth. I got a hand job in the backseat of a car. During the day, me sitting directly behind the driver, with nothing covering my penis, with the girl's mom driving.
For people who have dated rich people, what did you learn? My ex-wife had a grandfather that was a multi-millionaire. Christmas time at their house was like being in another world. All of the different family members would try to get a moment with the king and would suck up to him as much as possible. I spent my time down on the ground playing with my kids and was happy to get out of there. About a week or two after the second Christmas, I got a phone call from Grandpa. He wanted to know what he could do for my family. I told him I didn't want any of his money, but I would like my kids to know their great-grandfather. Later that year, he showed up at our place unexpected and spent most of the afternoon telling stories with me about his youth. He set up a trust fund for each one of my kids to have their college paid for. A little bit after that, he told me out of all of his in-laws, I was the only one that never asked him for anything but to be himself.
Has a black person bullied you for being white? My younger daughter came back to our car crying once when we were at Aldi. I asked her what was wrong as all she had done was to take the cart back while I was rearranging some stuff in the back. My daughter told me that she offered her cart to the next person walking up as we often do and the man told her, I don't need no charity from a fat, stuck-up, white racist, stupid beach like you. I can afford my own cart. My sweet daughter was 15 at the time and had a low self-esteem from being slightly overweight and also from kids teasing her at school because she has dyslexia and reading is slow as a result. I saw red that day and marched back into Aldi to find that man, which wasn't hard because there were only 4 customers in the store and only 2 were black, a very large man and a little old lady. I was livid and honestly didn't care what he thought of me. I asked him how dare he make a sweet young girl cry when all she was doing was being polite. Then I asked how dare he call her what he called her, repeating it all word for word. I told him he was a disgusting human being judging other by the color of their skin like he did. As I was leaving, the little old black lady started berating him, claiming people like him are the reason black people get reputations as being lower class. What's your secret that could literally ruin your life if it came out? I once helped out my female friend's family by taking care of their cat for a week. Every day for a week, I would go over there and snoop around their house. I found my friend's diary, and proceeded to read the entire thing. I used this information to get her to like me, and she is currently my wife. I cut off all contact with everyone I know and moved to Kenya. I tell people a fake name and a fake background and have made it appear to my family that I died on boat trip in the Pacific. No, I am not joking. I am dead in the United States. I accidentally killed 7 people. I put a rag into a new water heater exhaust to keep debris out and installed it in a rental. I get a call a week later, there's been an accident. I show up and there's a ton of EMS and police. They ask me where the gas shutoff is, and I go down to shut the gas off and see the end of the rag I forgot sticking out of the top of the heater. Rip the rag out, shut the gas off and head upstairs only to be told all the tenants were dead. I drink all day now and sleep. It's killing me from the inside every single day, but if I say anything my family is ruined. We have a bunch of rental properties and we'd be shut down.
What's the dumbest thing you've done out of pure horniness? On weekends during high school, I frequently would sneak out of the house and sneak into my girlfriend at the time's parents' house. Well, I didn't have a car or a driver's license at the time, and the only car I could use was my mom's standard Toyota Camry. This led to many situations of me being stalled out on a hill at 3 a.m. with no driver's license, but I did learn how to drive standard quite well. My mom was really confused by that. Also, sometimes I would tell my parents I was staying the night with a friend and have my parents drop me off at school for my friends to pick me up. Well, my GF at the time lived about a mile from school, so I would just walk to her place. But when I would spend the night, I would have to hide in the closet, leave by 5 a.m. because her dad always came and checked on her before he left for work. So, that led to a couple instances of sleeping in the closet, but the best/worst was when I had to leave, but no place to stay. So before this situation, my buddy was able to obtain a copy of the key to the guy's locker room, and I happened to have it that night. So after being kicked out of her place and, of course, getting my rocks off, I walked back to school and managed to sneak into the locker room.
What have you done in a moment of horniness that was against your better judgment? It involved lube, a vacuum hose and a faulty power switch. It's too painful to recall. Had sex in a pool. Do not recommend. Never ever put Tiger Balm on your lady parts. Ever. Had sex with someone who I thought that was really unattractive, and she smelled terrible. But I hadn't had sex in 2 years' time and I thought, why not?
My neighbor bangs on the floor. I have an upstairs neighbor who always bangs on the floor when she thinks I'm being too loud. She also leaves notes on my fence, shaming me to the street. However, despite her strict rules of conduct, she herself stomps around her apartment and plays loud music at 6:30 a.m. while she showers. It's quite entertaining, I must say. I live, laugh, and love here under her reign every day. The other day we had our first day of spring. It was a beautiful and warm day with a gentle breeze that entered the house. I noticed that my naughty neighbor had her balcony doors open too. So I immediately decided to do a little DIY project project. I grabbed some spray paint, closed my doors with my dog inside, and started repainting the legs of my outdoor chairs. Every time my neighbor closed her doors, I took a break. And as soon as she reopened them, I went back outside to apply another coat of paint, letting the fumes drift into her house with the lovely spring breeze. I could hear her slamming the door a little harder each time, and it was like sweet music to my ears. I made sure the entire painting process took the whole day, so she couldn't fully enjoy the sunshine. It was such a satisfying success that I might consider taking up furniture revamping as a new hobby.
AITA for ruining both my parents' marriages for disowning me? I am the byproduct of my parents' extramarital affair. Both of them had spouses at the time. My birth mother got pregnant and had to tell her husband as he was overseas when I was conceived, so there was no way I was his. A few months after I was born, they decided not to divorce. I was given to my grandparents on my mother's side to raise, with my birth father secretly paying child support without his wife's knowledge. Both my parents had other children. My dad's side knows nothing about me, but my siblings on my mom's side were told that I am adopted by my grandparents. Recently I decided that I wanted to know more about my dad's family, and I sent a friend's request to one of my siblings and my dad so I could get to know him. Well, he freaked out and contacted my birth mom, and they asked to speak to me over Skype. They both told me that they couldn't risk staying in contact with me and told me that they were going no contact and to please respect it and move on with my life. Well, I did pretty much the opposite. I contacted my dad's wife and shared screenshots of our conversations and told her everything. She is now divorcing him, while on my mother's side I told both my siblings, who then went on to tell extended family including her husband's side, so now they are separate and my siblings hate my mother. Currently my siblings on both sides' lives have been upturned, and after the satisfaction has worn off I feel like I unnecessarily hurt them through my parents. AITA for ruining my parents' marriages?
As a student, what is the saddest thing you have found out about your teacher? The entire class stood outside the door waiting for him to unlock it like he did every class. We stood there waiting and waiting. Even the late kids were now there at this point. The teacher had never been this late. After around 15 minutes, the principal lets us in the classroom. We all sat down in our chairs wondering what was going on. Then it came. The principal stood up and said something that shocked us all. "Your teacher, Mr. M, has passed away." The room went silent. We were all shocked. It was as if lightning has just struck every person in that room at once. The man couldn't have been more than 43 years old, and he didn't look sick when we had seen him 2 days prior. God, the silence. The principal then explained that Mr. M had been sick for a while with pancreatitis. He never expected to live to an old age and had prepped the staff in case this event ever occurred. Some kids started crying, others asked questions, and some just sat there in silence. We were eventually all sent home early. Mr. M was my 11th grade film teacher. This man was one of the main reasons I am pursuing a career in film editing today. He was the one who started the spark. People who quit their jobs on the first day. What was your "I'm outta here" moment? I got a job at a Build-A-Bear knockoff at the end of a mall that wasn't very busy. My interview with the owners was interesting. They were an older couple who said that they had wanted to open a Chick-fil-A, but you need about $1 million to do that. My first day, one other girl was working, and she didn't really talk to me. I had basically no training, and she disappeared into the back. I was standing at the register area, which was underneath a giant storybook mushroom. A mother and her young son walked in and started to look at the bearskin options. I greeted them and left them to look around. They ended up leaving after a couple of minutes, and my coworker reappeared from the back with the cordless phone and handed it to me. It was my boss. He told me that when a customer walks in, he wants me to come out from under the mushroom to them. Come out from the mushroom. After he finished speaking to me, I hung up and went to my coworker and asked about the phone call. She said the place has cameras set up, and the owners watch them from their house and call in a lot. I did not come back to work.
People, what is your downright scariest real-life story? Serious. I was home alone when I was 11. I had just fallen asleep and someone tried to break in the front door. I called 911 and hid in the pantry in the bottom shelf. They came to the door next to the pantry and tried to break into that door too. The police got there and one of them picked me up and held me until my mom got there. I wouldn't let go and he made sure I felt safe. I'm 27 and haven't stayed home alone much since. The day I signed a lease for my first apartment, I got a dog so I wouldn't be alone. It's pretty traumatizing when you're that young. I was 6 and watched my 3-year-old sister get run over by my uncle's car. She was playing at the bottom of a hill driveway. Uncle was working on a car up top and it slipped out of gear. I watched the car moving and called to my sister, but she didn't move, which ended up likely saving her life as she didn't get hit by the wheels. She was small enough that she got dragged underneath it a few feet. I was absolutely speechless and ran to find my aunt. She went in an ambulance to the hospital but was relatively okay. No lasting physical damage.
What's the best mistake you've ever made? I made a mistake and asked the wrong woman out on a date. I have trouble remembering names and faces. There was a girl named Vicky that I talked to during lunch breaks at school. There was another girl named Marie that I met once at a cookout. I had an event coming up with dinner and dancing, and I wanted to ask Vicky to be my date since I knew her better. One day, while rushing between classes, A girl named Vicky stopped me and said hello. I surprised her by asking her to come with me to the event. She agreed, and I took out my notepad to write down her number. I wrote down the name Vicky, but she told me that wasn't her name. I apologized for my mistake and asked her what her name was. It was Marie. I realized that I had asked out the wrong girl, but I didn't want to back out since she had already said yes. We went on the date, and that night, we both fell in love. 3 weeks later, we got engaged. It has been 38 years since then, and we have a son together. We are still happily together, and yes, she knows the whole story.
What's the most horrific act committed by someone you know personally? Guy I went to school with was real calm, very smart, and everyone loved him. He was a gentle person from what I remember. He had lost his mom a couple years before this. She was a nurse and they found her dead in a hospital room during her shift. Unknown causes. Our senior year of high school, dude is a championship wrestler, dominating his grades, and just doing good. He lived with his dad who was a police officer for years and years. At lunch one day he left school and came back. Everything was normal and the day was finished out. His dad did not show up for work that evening, and the police department sent someone to go knock on his door. They found the house ransacked and his dad lying in bed, deceased. Later that night they called my grandmother in for questioning because she cleaned their house once a week. Not much later than that, the guy I went to school with broke down and confessed that he had come home on lunch to ask for money, and he and his dad got in an argument. His dad laid down like normal for his shift, and he took his dad's service pistol, gunned him down, and after realizing what he'd done, he'd freaked out and turned the house upside down to make it look like a robbery, then went and finished the day at school to try to make it seem like he had no clue what had happened.
My boyfriend said the quiet part out loud. Last night my boyfriend, 20, and me, 21 female, were going to have some fun. For context, this is the only non-abusive relationship I've ever had, especially in regards to lovemaking. To put it lightly, my other relationships didn't give a crap about me or my pleasure. Sometimes I get worried my current boyfriend doesn't care about my pleasure, but I've been convincing myself that I'm just paranoid and putting up a wall because of my last relationships. So we're getting in the mood, and I notice once again he is not doing much for me and I'm doing everything for him and his pleasure. For instance, this happens often. I put his hand down there and he moves it away. I tell him I really want to finish tonight and he immediately does an annoyed face with a big sigh. I'm confused. He says, but that's so much work making you finish. I don't know if it's your ADHD or something but. And I immediately stop what I'm doing and my mind goes blank. I do have ADHD, but let me tell you, this man doesn't do anything to pleasure me. He has said he finds vaginas gross, so let me tell you this has nothing to do with my ADHD. Last night he confirmed my worst fears, that for 5 effing years I've been dating him and he doesn't.
What will never not be funny? Accidentally walking in on my dad, my uncle, and my grandma smoking of my grandma's medical marijuana as a teen. My grandma saying, "Are you in or are you out?" Mostly asking if I was going to keep this secret from my aunt. Not knowing any of them smoked and saying yes, because how often does that opportunity occur all at once? I take a couple hits, and we go to dinner, hot dogs and macaroni. We all keep our cool, probably too silently eating our food, and I look over as I'm trying to suction off that inevitable first bite of bread bun from the roof of my mouth, and I lock eyes with my tiny little grandma doing the same thing, and the seal of silence broke, and we laughed so hard despite trying to hold back. My uncle and dad covered their plates as we burst out laughing, mouths full. My aunt in utter confusion and sudden realization all at once, just shaking her head while we tried to control ourselves to no end. Best memory ever. Still makes me laugh. It's the small things in life. There's nothing bigger. If there's nothing